Hi, this is Bill McCormick with CK Capital Management. I'm here with Matt Harnick today, a good friend of mine and a longtime business associate. Matt's with Keller Williams Real Estate in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. And I thought we'd take some time today to just walk through some transactions that Matt and I have successfully done over several years, and just to help realtors that have never been involved in a short sale kind of understand some of the challenges that might arise and how to overcome those obstacles. And Matt and I are going to specifically talk about two different transactions, recent transactions that have presented their own challenges. But before we get started, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the business, and about your team.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Bill.
Absolutely.
Licensed since 2006, full-time since 2009. Kind of got into real estate as an investor first, and then got my license really just to be able to buy and sell flip properties and be able to sort of increase our real estate portfolio. And then when I went to full-time in 2009, came over to Keller Williams. I've been here since for 14 years. I have a small team. It's Michelle, otherwise known as Mish. She's our operations manager, and Trey Wilkins is the other agent on our team. It's the three of us. We operate in and out of the Philadelphia metropolitan area, in really all the surrounding counties. And now because Trey's a little further out, we also handle Lehigh County, Berks County, and parts of Lancaster County. For the last 3 years, we have been a top 100 rated Keller Williams team, and glad to be here.
Yeah, and Matt, and thank you for participating today.
Sure.
And, one of the reasons that I was in Matt's office a few weeks ago doing a lunch and learn, and the reason I asked Matt to sit in on this agent spotlight was because some of the transactions that we've had the opportunity to do have not been the easiest, and it definitely is a team effort. And Matt has a wonderful team. The level of response, a level of professionalism. And you have to understand, when you're working with a distressed homeowner, it's not just about selling the home. There's some life event. Somebody's passed away, somebody's lost their job, going through divorce, and it presents a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
And Matt's handled those, and his team have handled those challenges gracefully and towards success. So let's kind of jump right in. And for those of you that are watching this, realtors, if you've never listed a short sale property, okay, kind of the goal for today is to kind of give a sense for what are some of those challenges that arise, okay, and then how do you handle them appropriately in order to get the sale to the table, okay? So a couple scenarios that we're going to talk to you about today. All right. First one is where we had a transaction, short sale, where the homeowner had, I believe, IRS tax liens.
IRS liens, PA Department of Revenue liens. There was some credit card things. There was a bunch of stuff in there.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, the credit cards are always a challenge because that's considered personal debt, and the mortgage companies in a short sale won't pay personal debt. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up. And then the other one we're going to talk about is the estate sale.
Yeah,
right.
That was a challenge.
And it was a challenge for a lot of reasons. One, we had the execuder was
unwilling and out of the area.
Yeah. There was no incentive for them.
Correct.
Because there was no money coming out of the transaction.
This is all about taking care of her relative's memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Estate.
Exactly. And we find that a lot, Matt, in our business is, when someone passes away and an adult child gets involved and they realize that, mom and dad, maybe they took out a reverse mortgage and they took the equity out, or mom and dad, borrowed against the home, or mom and dad got behind in their bills, and they don't discover that there is no equity in the home until they become the executor and mom and dad pass away. And those adult children get involved, and they realize, oh my gosh, mom was struggling, and she was too proud to let me know she couldn't afford the mortgage anymore. And we get asked this all the time from realtors saying, well, if there's no money in it, why would they even waste their time? And it's funny because a lot of times what we say is that the generation of the people that are passing away today, that generation, they were all about their credit score, always about paying their bills in time, on time. And what we hear time and time again is that, I know I'm not getting anything out of it, but man, if I let mom's house foreclose, if I let dad's house foreclose, they'd be rolling over in their grave.
I'll never forgive myself, that kind of, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's the memory of that, and how they grew up and where they grew up. So, all right,
pride element in some way too.
Oh, without a doubt,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Okay, so let's jump into it. So let's talk about the estate sale first.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
and I know when you brought me in, I believe the estate was already open, but do you recall whether was the estate open and closed, or were they in process of when you took on the listing?
I believe the estate had already been opened, but it wasn't closed out yet, and it was just a really, as Bill said, it was a very interesting situation because it was my listing, and I found the buyer. So we were working with the buyer for, I have to believe it was at least 6-8 months or so. It was a while. The executrix of the estate was the homeowner who had passed. It was her sister. She was living in Florida, and as Bill said, I mean, there was just not really much of an incentive for her to move on with it and help us get this to settlement, because she wasn't getting any monetary benefit. The estate wasn't benefiting out of it at all. Again, it was an estate contained in a short sale, or vice versa. So it was just a lot of moving parts. And she really didn't have any incentive to get anything done. It went on for quite a while. Fortunately, and as Bill I'm sure will agree, one of the most important parts is to have a buyer that's willing to wait and realizes that this could take a while.
Yeah. And the other thing we always say too is, in our business, death in any transaction, particularly in a short sale, is an uncooperative seller.
Correct.
And I remember it was a Philadelphia property, and she was in Florida, I believe. And I remember it was like a struggle to pull information out.
Yeah.
But to your point, the buyer really wanted the property, and they were willing to wait while we worked through that. And I now that you're saying that it was an estate, I remember it was an estate, but had an attorney. Do you know if they had like proof of executorship? Do you know that if they had that? Was inheritance tax taken care of, or is that something that needed to be handled?
So as far as the estate information, I believe we did ultimately get a short certificate. I believe that had been taken care of. But inheritance tax was actually something they had to escrow for at settlement, because they had to derive a figure and basically just escrow that. So obviously the bank took less, and that was one of the things you had to negotiate. Yeah,
you're right. And one thing that we've learned since then is to address the inheritance tax up front.
Okay.
And here's why. That and not a lot of folks know this, that typically the figure that we're told by estate attorneys is assume 4.5% inheritance tax on the sale of the property.
Yep.
And to Matt's point, that in that scenario we had to escrow the money, even though there were no proceeds. So that was a real learning experience for CK Capital, because what we've come to realize is that a lot of title companies, Matt, they won't escrow money there's no money to escrow in a short sale, and they won't be able to issue the title insurance. So we were very fortunate with that they were willing to let us settle on it and then allow that time period to come to fruition. Where it wasn't due. Now, what we've learned out of that is early on in the process now, when we are pulled into estate sales, what we'll do is we'll talk to the estate attorney. They can actually go and file papers with the Commonwealth to prove that the estate's insolvent, and it takes that 4.5% off the table.
Oh,
but
how about that?
Yours was one, and we had a handful of other transactions when we realized, hey, there's no money here, what do we need to do? And it really boils down to the title company being able to issue title insurance to a buyer.
I don't imagine that's a common occurrence, by the way, the estate short sale combination.
It's ebb and flow, all right? And what we're seeing now is the big driver of that is more reverse mortgages, where the
can't handle
equity's already taken out of the property.
Yeah.
And you know, my wife is my business partner, and I was just talking to her about this because we do a lot of lunch and learns and stuff like we did in your office a few weeks back. And we have right now 8 active reverse mortgage short sales. And if you think about it, we have an aging population, right?
Yeah.
Folks are on fixed incomes, and they're outliving their money.
Yeah.
You know, they're paying more for groceries, paying more for gas, they're paying more for eggs, they're paying more for their taxes.
Everything.
Yeah, and if they're looking at these last couple of years, the equity that they've, you know, gained, you know, in their homes,
Yeah.
you know, do I want to, you know, I'm 78 years old, do I want to struggle on my fixed income for the next 5-10 years, maybe more?
Or do the reverse mortgage.
Do the reverse mortgage. So
Until.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny, we're seeing now, again, the way the reverse mortgages are written today, and we're getting a little bit off topic, but that's okay. The way the reverse mortgages are written today, they're a lot more strict. All right, there's still that age requirement to enter into it, but the way they've kind of reworked the reverse mortgage program, which is a HUD-backed program. Reverse mortgages are housing urban development backed loans, HUD-backed loans, FHA, is they don't allow that homeowner to take out as much equity or percentage based on their age.
Right. Okay.
What we're seeing now is the reverse mortgage short sales that we're doing, and in the last 45 days, as I said, we have about 8 of them, all right, that we're either actively involved in or closed. They were written between 2006 and 2013, because the way the program was then, they allowed that homeowner to take out 100% of their equity.
Right.
You know, and the challenge there is, you know, life gets in the way. You know, if I have $300,000 in equity and the bank says, it's like winning the lottery. Do you want the lump sum? Do you want a line of credit you can take down against it? Do you want us to pay you monthly as income until you use up that $300,000? Majority of folks, they take the lump sum $300,000. You know, and then life gets in the way.
And they spend it.
And they spend it. You know, this kid needs help buying a car. This daughter needs help with her wedding, and this son needs help going to college. And it's unfortunate that they end up burning through the money. So, good digression first. Good digression.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So, let's go back to the estate, okay? And I remember that the heir being in Florida and the property being in Philadelphia, I think we had some city taxes that we had to negotiate. Was it Gasworks?
I'm pretty sure there was Philadelphia Gas Works. There might have been water bills. I think they're lienable too in Philly, right?
Yeah.
There was water bills. There was taxes. A bunch of stuff. I mean, there was a whole lot to that. And again, I mean, it's hard. I can imagine. I'm sure you can imagine out there too. If you're the executor, you're not benefiting from this in any way, and you have to tie up a whole lot of your time to get this taken care of, so that the buyer, so someone else can benefit, strictly for, you know, being able to keep the decedent's memory and you know, alive, and just respect their, you know, what their wishes were. I mean, that's a tough call. I mean, I can't imagine that a lot of people want to go through that.
Well, and you know, going back to what we were saying earlier about, you know, she was getting nothing out of it, the heir, the executor, and you know, the one thing is that, you know, living in Florida, never living in the home, it was mom's home, she had no idea what mom was or wasn't spending money on, and what taxes were there. And I think we lucked out, because Philadelphia in and of itself can be very challenging with you know, license and inspections, and not cutting the yard, and you know, stuff, you know, furniture sitting out that you know, there's somebody else there, and breaking in, and whatever else goes along with that.
Squatters, I mean, absolutely, and that kind of. I mean, we lucked out; we didn't have any of that stuff. We've run across that. I'm sure you have, where folks have moved in. And you're seeing it all over the news now, where you have to basically get a court order. You can't put anybody out on the street now. It's getting more and more difficult with some of the policies that we're being faced with in the real estate industry. All right, so just last thing on this one, Matt, and I remember we were getting down to the you know, a week or so before settlement, and the executor was down in Florida. How did you handle,
getting them to deed package and getting them to sign everything. How did you handle that?
Well, fortunately, we work with a phenomenal company, title company, Matter Land Transfer,
Okay.
and they have affiliates all over the states. So what we basically did was we contacted them and we said, hey, we have an executor who needs to sign a deed package in, I don't remember what town it was, wherever it was in Florida. Do you have someone down there, an affiliate that can help us? And they did. We ended up getting, I think it was a local real estate agent that I contacted actually, who they drew up the deed package, they sent it, and then the real estate agent delivered it to her, and then a title agent was there to notarize it. A lot more moving parts just simply because she was out of the area. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the nice things about dealing with companies and people in this industry that have a bit more of a reach outside the Philadelphia area. So we really took advantage of a lot of those relationships.
Now you're triggering my memory, because that's one of the things that I talked earlier about partnership with Matt and his team and the folks that he surrounds himself, and having resources like that. I mean, I've worked with realtors over the years that would have just said, well, it's up to the seller, go figure it out. And and I know in that scenario, if we left it up to the seller's devices,
no, it would have foreclosed.
Yeah, and Matt, now that you're saying that, Matt actually found a local realtor, coordinated, someone to go out and kind of explain what it was that they were signing, and got the remote notary to get everything notarized and get it back in time.
Yeah.
That was the last little wrinkle to that.
Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Now that I'm remembering it, it was actually the real estate agent that went out and showed her where to sign the agreement, because normally in this day and age, we typically will use electronic signatures, DocuSign, our industry standard, one of them, .loop, another one, and normally, if the executrix in this case was tech savvy, we would have just had her sign everything electronically. That was the issue. She didn't use email. So the real estate agent went out and helped her sign on the different parts of the agreement, and then the title company went out right before settlement and got the deed package done.
Yeah.
FedExed it back, and it was just
now that you're saying that, because I remember we had to snail mail.
Oh yeah.
Like our paperwork to get authorized to speak with our lender on our behalf to start that. All right. Well, good memory. You got
it's coming back to me,
brother.
This has been a couple of years already. Yeah.
All right. So let's transition to the next transaction that we were involved in.
Yep.
And this is one where the owners had an IRS lien, and they had Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, IRS liens and PA Department of Revenue liens and credit card, etc. Everything totaled about $900,000, I want to say, and the house was worth like in the mid sixes. So there was definitely like a major difference between what was owed, and what the house was worth. And then Bill went to work.
Well, and I remember we had to do a little bit of detective work
Yeah.
to try and really understand what were the liens, and going into it, when you first met them to talk about listing the property,
Yep.
did they let you know that they actually had tax liens on it?
No, it was a little more complicated because I actually knew the family,
Okay.
and to a degree, and I understand that they didn't necessarily want to let me in on all of that. Once we got into it, they realized that we were only there to help, and I was clued in on everything, and there was a lot there.
Yeah, and I remember that the IRS liens were actually tied to a business. The taxes due on a business, and that kind of because I remember we had to talk to the title company to determine would that attach, and to the title, and as it turns out, it absolutely did.
Yeah.
Trying to get accurate payoffs, trying to figure out what was actually owed, what was paid, and I remember those liens went back a ways, and a lot of times, for those of you that don't know, IRS liens, when they're put on a property or an individual, they're in blocks of 10 years, and if they renew them, all right, then they still have to be dealt with, and a lot of times the IRS won't renew them, and I know we had to figure out which ones were paid, which ones were settled, and I think there was a lot of confusion on behalf of the sellers of what was really still out there, you know. But we were able to get it done and doing the legwork, unfortunately. Yeah. But that's where title search comes into play. You know, one of the things that we recommend at CK Capital when we're working with Matt and other realtors, you know, one of the things that we say is that, you know, we're going to run title on every single property that we're negotiating a short sale on, because the worst thing we could have done is gone ahead, listed the property, and then we find out a week and a half before settlement there's IRS liens and there's PA tax liens.
And then you've got no time to take care of them. And of course, the penalties and interest are still accruing on a lot of this stuff too. So that payoff number is not going to be good for that long.
Yeah, yeah. And I do you remember, were the homeowners even aware that they had to have those paid off to provide clear title to a buyer? Or is that something you had to educate them on?
Yeah, I mean, I had to go through the whole process with them. I'm not sure if they were even aware. There was a lot going on for them personally, so it was the culmination of just a lot. And that's often something that I find too. I'm sure you do too. I mean, this, for me anyway, it's not typically just our house is worth this, we owe this, and how do we all figure out? There's always a lot going on. There's sickness, there's other issues. So there's a lot of, we come into the situation not necessarily just looking to provide just a simple, financial solution to all this, but also there's just a lot of other things we have to deal with, a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Hey, and remember on this one, there were two mortgages, and we were fortunate enough that
Mr. Cooper was one of them.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Mr. Cooper is Nation Star Mortgage. It was a PR thing. Why they changed it to Mr. Cooper is beyond me. We'll have homeowners call us and say, "Who's Mr.
Cooper?"
and why are they trying to collect money from me? Yeah. But yeah, I believe so. Mr. Cooper, we got them paid off in full. So really, it was more about negotiating with the second mortgage lender, right? And that really wasn't a challenge. It was more about the IRS and state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And the state of Pennsylvania is difficult in and of itself because it's very hard to get information from the state. It takes, and this is nothing against the state, but this is reality, is, it might take you 3-4 weeks to get a payoff. And so those of you that are working with clients out there and they have Pennsylvania tax liens or any type of payment due to Pennsylvania, do yourself a favor, get that process started early on.
Call Bill.
Don't wait
quickly
for the title company a week and a half before settlement to try and get those payoffs,
Nope.
And as a matter of fact, when you came in, that's exactly what I was doing on another property. Short sales approved. There's several Pennsylvania tax liens, and the approval letter that we just got, a handful of days ago, is valid through May 30th. Well, it might take a couple weeks to get the payoffs because we've already gotten them once, but the title company said, no, we need updated payoffs and we need them good through the middle of June to allow us enough time to get them paid and get them resolved, even though settlement is by the end of May.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want any surprises along the way with that.
We actually did have a surprise at the end of that process, remember?
Yes, we did with the IRS. Yeah.
Changed the payoff.
Yep, IRS changed the payoff to us post closing. And do you mind talking about how we handled that?
Well, it's up to you.
I mean, we talk about it being a partnership. And Matt and I went in knowing that there could be some issues post closing, and what Matt and I ended up doing is the sale closed. We presented all the documents to the IRS. The IRS had approved taking less, all right. But then what they did is they looked at the settlement statement, and which was provided to them to get the approval. But they came up and said, well, wait a minute, this lender is getting paid in full, PA is getting money, and the IRS did not like that PA was getting money ahead of them, so they came back and asked for more. So
lot more.
what Matt and I did in that scenario is, again, this is the partnership, we both contributed on behalf of the sellers to take care of that for them. So, these transactions, as I said, they're different, right? You have some type of life issue. And that brings me really to my last question, Matt, is, working with distressed property owners, whether it be death or job loss or medical issues or divorce, you're not only selling a home, but you're also acting as a counselor to someone that's losing their home.
Yeah.
What skill set, Matt, do you think, that you bring to the table and that other realtors should really think about in working with distressed property owners?
I think the important thing to consider is that, as Bill said, this is, and as we said before, this is not just a financial transaction in most cases. There is a lot on the line. Families losing houses, estates being cleared out, children being, expecting that there's going to be an estate they're going to benefit from, and then there's nothing left. There's a lot at work. And I think the really important part to remember is that as soon as you get involved with a situation like this, where it appears that there's going to be a shortfall, immediately, first of all, put your hat, your human being hat on, and try to look at this empirically, like in terms of there's a house that needs to be sold. There are people that are going to be really upset about this, not at you as an agent, but as the situation, and just really figure out what you can do to help ameliorate the whole situation. The best thing you can do, of course, is to bring CK Capital into the process, because for those of you agents out there, especially who have tried to navigate a short sale process yourself, you know that it's impossible. I mean, there's no way that an agent can really do this adequately and also continue to run your business as a real estate agent. There's just no comparison to the way that any of us could possibly do this and navigate this process, which is, again, why we work with CK Capital. I mean, Bill and Denise have been terrific to work with. It's been over 10 years now. I would never do it any other way. And, it's, again, aside from having the knowledge and the technical know-how and the relationships, every time we talk, it's, it's this time it's Bank of America, this time it's Citizens Bank or Mr. Cooper or whatever. Bill says, great, I know exactly who to call, and he has them on speed dial, probably, and can just call them and go through the situation. He already has an established relationship. It's a person-to-person type thing. Hey, here's the situation. Here's what we need to do to get these homeowners through this difficult hurdle and on to the rest of their lives. And, I think the most important thing is to recognize that it's going to take a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of emotion involved, but it's extremely rewarding at the end, because most real estate agents don't put in the time and simply say, I can't help you. Well, that's not part of our team's vocabulary, and it's not part of our team's vocabulary. So again, that's really the advice that I can give. I think that it's important. We actually just learned a little bit about the CARES Act from you a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's an important piece of it too.
Yeah, it's present a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I will say, for those of you that are thinking about on the listing side taking on short sales, what Matt just said there is really key. You have to wear a different hat, and you have to understand that these folks are losing their home, right? But I will tell you that doing the job that Matt and his team have done, working with us to get these transactions to the settlement table, you're helping people out of one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, life events they're having.
Yeah.
And the reality is, the benefit of the short sale is that the debt reports is settled.
Yeah.
There's no judgment. The lender will pay all the homeowner's closing fees, realtor commission, transfer tax, title company fees.
CK Capital fees.
CK Capital fees.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that homeowner, all right, because the debt reports is settled, it wipes the slate clean.
Yep.
And they can go out and become a new homeowner in about two and a half to 3 years. Yeah. So it's definitely worth it. And lastly, we'll probably put this up on our website. We're definitely going to put it up on our social media. But every once in a while, we'll direct homeowners to learn a little bit about the things that we do as a company. So Matt, how can a homeowner get a hold of you and your team?
Sure. Our website is Harnick, HARNICK team.com. We'll add the graphic on as well. My direct cell is 215-576-5500. Email matt@harnickteam.com. We're always available to help you, and especially Michelle, God bless her, who's in the office 8:30 to 5 every weekday. And Bill?
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I'd like to thank Matt for taking time to speak with me today. Hopefully you realtors had a chance, you learned a little bit, and obviously we're open to any calls or questions at any point in time. And Matt and I were talking about transactions here in the Philadelphia area. CK Capital Management, we facilitate short sales across the country. So regardless of where you are, what are those challenges are, we can assist with the homeowners, we can consult with them, make sure that they understand the short sale process, understand what the tax implications, what the credit implications are, what the benefits of a short sale are, and try and help you as a realtor grow your business by expanding your services. So don't hesitate to reach out. My cell number is 302-893-9288. Our website is www.ckcapitalmanagement.com. Again, Bill McCormick, Managing Director. Thanks for tuning in today. Take care.